Are convicted felons allowed to hold a security clearance?
No.
Are convicted felons allowed to serve in the military?
No.
Are convicted felons allowed to visit most countries?
There's a long list of countries they cannot visit.
Folks, a bad day for Donald Trump and Republicans is a great day for America. And let me tell you, today is a great day for America. Because Donald Trump was on Capitol Hill meeting with House and Senate Republicans, and as almost a prophetic sign of the shitstorm their day would descend into, this is how it all started. Yep, that is a truck funded by the Democratic National Committee following felon Donald Trump with a mobile billboard showing footage from January 6th as he travels to his meetings with House and Senate Republicans in D.C. And whoever's doing the marketing at the DNC deserves a raise. Now, the reason Donald Trump was on Capitol Hill today meeting with congressional Republicans was to sketch a plan for his second term. And hopefully, by sketch a plan, they don't mean draw on the map of a hurricane with a Sharpie. Though a hurricane is a pretty good analogy of what another Trump presidency would look like. And he met up with them for the first time not only since he left office, but also the first time since his historic criminal convictions in the New York hush money trial, which caused House Republicans to be over an hour late for their own House Judiciary hearing on the Manhattan District Attorney's Office.
Committee will come to order without objection. The chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. We want to welcome everyone to today's hearing on the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I apologize, looks like we're 62 minutes late in starting, but we had an important guest spoke to our Republican conference today.
And that, in turn, led to this hilarious moment, the first of many I have for you today, where Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell humiliated his Republican counterparts in the best way.
Just a show of hands for anyone in the room who hung out with a felon today. Hey, guys, probably want to get your hands up if you were hanging out with convicted felon Donald Trump. I don't think anyone on our side did, but that's why we're here.
This man has been absolutely cooking Republicans lately like pigs on a spit. And for good reason, because as we'll see throughout this video, they are completely incompetent at doing even the bare minimum of governance. So drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new here, and let's dive into this debacle of a hearing. Starting with the hearing itself, which is yet another example of Republicans wasting taxpayer money to put on a political show and in turn have Rotten Tomatoes thrown at them like they're Quasimodo. Damn, that is so much worse than I remember. But anyway, I have a great example of Mr. 17 is close enough, Matt Gaetz, taking the first tomato to the face in a second. But for some quick context, this is what the Republicans claim the hearing was about. They say the purpose of this hearing was to examine Alvin Bragg's political prosecution of President Trump. Notice how there's no former there. Calling it politically motivated and politicized among some other Republican buzzwords. And the whole thing just kind of reads like the whiny little brats they are, digging for any scrap of dirt they can get on their political opponents.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa!
That's too damn bad!
Here's Matt Gaetz falling on his stupid face as he tries to make a motion to get District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who brought the Trump case that led to his conviction, to show up and testify, despite him already saying he'd do just that.
Will the gentleman yield for a
No,
question?
one second, I got a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move under Committee Rule 4 and Clause 2M of House Rule 11 to require the attendance and testimony of Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo on July 12th to discuss their involvement in the Trump prosecution, including their office's coordination with the Department of Justice.
Mr. Chairman, it's a little absurd because Mr. Bragg and Mr. Colangelo have already agreed to appear before the committee on July 12th. We have a letter to that effect.
Mr. Bragg and Mr. Colangelo have agreed to come on the 12th. If they don't show up on the 12th, they will be subpoenaed. So I would ask the gentleman if he could withdraw the motion. They're coming.
I've made a motion to subpoena these people now, pursuant to the rules, and I want to vote on my motion, or I want someone to move to table it.
I move to
require
table.
the attendance.
I move to table the...
That's fine.
I
Let's take a
second
vote.
that.
That's too damn bad!
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because it was steady downhill from there. Here is Representative Swalwell asking one of the witnesses, attorney and former diplomat Norm Eisen, if the terms of probation for a convicted felon like Donald Trump allow them to hang out with other felons.
But Ambassador Eisen, I want to talk about, now that he's a convicted felon, declared 408 times guilty by his neighbors, are convicted felons allowed to hold a security clearance?
No.
Are convicted felons allowed to serve in the military?
No.
Are convicted felons allowed to visit most countries?
There's a long list of countries they cannot visit.
And typically, the terms of probation for a convicted felon, do they allow you to hang out with other felons?
That's prohibited. There are other prohibitions, such as gun ownership.
That's probably going to be a problem if your friends are criminals like Paul Manafort, who was Donald Trump's former campaign manager, vice chairman of the campaign, Rick Gaetz, aide to the campaign and convicted felon Roger Stone, former White House aide, also convicted, Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, also a convict, on his way to jail soon, former national security advisor, also a convict, Michael Flynn, and his accountant, Alan Weisselberg, currently in custody right now. But this is the person who you all chose to hang out with this morning, delaying the original start time of our hearing because rather than getting work done for people who need us to work, you chose a felon over helping families. We're going to flip that, and we're going to choose families over felons, and I yield back.
And Swalwell didn't just dunk on Republicans for cultishly backing a convicted felon and putting off their own hearing to suck up to him. He also completely dismantled the entire reasoning behind the hearing in the first place.
Fast forward to another trial that took place recently. The president's son, Hunter Biden, he tried to plead, was not able to do that. He was found guilty, and actually I heard your side in Fox News celebrating the verdict, celebrating the idea that a jury of his peers found him guilty. So again, when it hurts their guy, it's a rigged jury. When it hurts the president's son, we celebrate the jury. I want to talk a little bit about judicial bias, because they've suggested that there's a bias that occurred in this case. Ambassador Eisen, in Donald Trump's other case, where he's alleged to have stolen national security secrets, who appointed the judge to the bench in the Southern Florida federal case?
Unlike the special counsel in the Hunter Biden prosecution, who is a Trump holdover, David Weiss, that was a last-minute, referring back to our history, midnight appointment, you can call it, by Donald Trump of Judge Eileen Cannon.
Are you kidding me? Donald Trump is complaining about bias in his case, and he's on trial for stealing national security documents with a judge that he appointed?
And Republicans tried so hard to get their point across. I tried so hard, but they didn't get so far. Like Chip Roy here getting shut down in his own line of questioning.
Are NDAs illegal?
When an NDA is used to facilitate an illegal campaign contribution over $127,000 in excess of the legal limits, yes, it is a means. It is an unlawful means.
Now, I'm going to be honest here. This is the first time I've ever heard of Norm Eisen, but I really like this guy and what he has to say. So in a little counterintuitive fashion, I'd like to close this video out with his opening remarks today that so perfectly sum up the Republicans' absolute bastardization of our justice system and our entire current political process.
I want to make 3 points today. First, a jury of Mr. Trump's peers in the city where he lived and worked most of his life found him guilty. I spent most of the trial watching them, and unlike some in court who dozed, they paid extremely close attention throughout. The jurors got it right. Witness after witness, formerly inside Mr. Trump's orbit, supported both parts of the jury's conclusion. First, that Mr. Trump intended to influence the 2016 election by unlawful means, including in the form of a $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels to benefit his campaign, over $100 $127,000 in excess of the legal limit. Second, that Mr. Trump covered it up through 34 false business records that disguised the repayment of that excessive contribution as a legal expense. The jury were not the only ones who got it right. So did the judge. I know this may astonish some who were fed a steady diet of disinformation about him, but Justice Juan Merchan bent over backwards to be fair to the defendant. Why should Mr. Trump have been allowed, for example, to act in contempt of court by violating the gag order no less than 10 times before he was warned that the 11th violation would lead to more serious consequences? Justice Merchan was judicious on that and many other occasions, as I believe the appellate review will demonstrate. Second, the jury found Mr. Trump lied to voters and covered it up with phony documents. Does that sound familiar? It should, because we saw this pattern repeat in 2020 with the big lie that Mr. Trump won the election. The false documents in 2020 were fake electoral certificates that were part of a scheme to overturn the legitimate outcome of the election in this body with tragic results on January 6, 2021. And Mr. Trump is limbering up to try the big lie again. He will not commit to accepting the 2024 election results unless he wins. That brings me to my third and final point, where the real threat of the politicization of the justice system and the weaponization of government lies. The attacks on the trial and verdict by the former president and others are politicizing a crime, falsification of business records, that has been prosecuted about 10,000 times in New York since 2015. Mr. Trump should not be treated any differently, no better, no worse, than those other defendants who falsified documents. His politicization of the case has led to a staggering amount of confusion, such as that there was no underlying crime specified that made his document falsification a felony. Not so. I brought an exhibit also, the May 12th, 2023 Bill of Particulars. That's the response to the Bill of Particulars that did specify the crime. And I have a pile of other documents here showing that that happened over and over again. As bad as all that is, the worst politicization is the call by Mr. Trump and others to baselessly prosecute his adversaries in retaliation for the verdict. Just last week, Mr. Trump pointed to his own prosecution and then said, it's very possible it's going to have to happen to them, to his political opponents. Those words are all the more chilling because they are not isolated to the issue of this trial. We should take them as a warning of what is to come should he return to office, starting with his promise to be a dictator on day one. That would be the real weaponization of government, not Mr. Trump's being held accountable by 12 of his fellow citizens. Thank you.
Bravo to him, and bravo to you for sticking it out if you made it this far. I know it's a long one, but I felt like those words needed to be heard. So thank you for watching, thank you for sticking it out. If you made it this far, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button to let us and the YouTube algorithm know that you like these big deep dives into the political news of the day. Thank you so much for watching, folks. We cannot do this without your support. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse, and I'll see you all in the next one.